everyone, and welcome to another episode of ClueCon Weekly. I'm your host, Jon Gray, and today I'm excited to introduce Sarah Aamir, who is a Partner Solutions Architect at AWS. Today we're going to talk about AI, generative AI, security, and kind of the landscape of AWS. So Sarah, welcoming you to the podcast with your debut to ClueCon Weekly.
Thank you so much, Jon, and it's a pleasure. I'm really excited to have this with you today.
Definitely.
And for everyone who doesn't know me, I'm Sarah Aamir. I'm a Partner Solutions Architect at Amazon, or in other ways, AI ML Cloud Strategy Leader at AWS, focused on some financial services with segments like capital markets, banking, insurance, payments, and working with specifically ISVs, the independent software vendors. With over 15 years of experience at Cisco, Dell, T-Mobile, and then now in AWS, I have seen how some strong infrastructure and event-driven systems set the stage for today's intelligent agentic AI targeting into current market challenges. Mm-hmm. So basically, in other words, I would say my day-to-day is helping partners bring generative AI into production, also bridge between the partners, AWS services, and enterprise customers, making sure what we build is technically sound, market-ready, and driving digital transformation through strategic business developments and executive partnerships.
Very cool. Well, it sounds exactly like you're the type of person I want to talk to about right now, because SignalWire recently announced a partnership with AWS, which we are really excited about, partnering with Novasonic and Bedrock. So our agentic AI telephony system is now leveraging some of the capabilities of Amazon Bedrock and some of the voice-to-voice solutions and models that you have over at Novasonic. Can you give the audience a little bit overview of what you guys have working on over there?
Oh, absolutely. That's such an exciting news, by the way. And I'm exactly involved into the Amazon Bedrock platform, our wonderful platform, which gives you or the partners and customers the leverage of all OpenAI sources, LLMs you can leverage. But you are already, I think you named about Nova.
So yeah, exactly.
That's Amazon proprietary, our own LLM. So, and I think your use case scenario, I'm guessing it is more about getting all that telemetry data from your telephony side to get into more analytics or get into the details of like monitoring and getting the ease of. Okay, that's very nice. Yeah. So it will the speech to speech element of it.
Yeah. What we're really focusing on is making powerful agents that also have low latency. So being able to have a voice call that is voice, and then it's translating to text, and then talking to the models, to then from text in order to speech, compiling that on top of actual business cases, talking about some of the agentic capabilities and kind of forming all of that together. So what I have been able to see is a lot lower latency and a lot more capabilities. We're able to do a lot more during the phone call that's happening to ultimately benefit the user experience, benefit everyone's quality of life, and, lightening up a little bit of the load for some of the employees or workers or agents or whoever it is that's adopting these systems.
Yep. I think it's more also sounds like Connect Center for your organization, right?
A lot of contact centers. Yeah.
Okay. So
exactly.
Yeah, Amazon Bedrock will definitely help you in all that analytics to get through and then transfer your customers into the right manner. Because you're right, as you said, not everything can be handled by the phone. But if the ease of this era gives us the opportunity to text or voice recognition, then why not? And that is what, that is what is going to bring you a great success and results.
Definitely. And kind of talking about some of the generative AI capabilities and some things that you've seen, what are some like practical production ready things that people are using today that are kind of successful in the world of generative AI? Is it like in support? Are you finding that there's interesting tools that people are using? What are people kind of creating that are really practical and they can use today?
Sure. Generally, I mean, there is a lot, but if I think about from my FSI industry perspective, which I am currently leading, production ready means co-pilot for support teams and AI-powered co-pilots in call centers in this kind of a scenario, which you have very similar, and then AI-powered code testing. And coming from the dev tools, if you ask me, code assists and test generation and natural language dashboards, that is also in one of the options you're leveraging. Analytics, of course, the natural business intelligence dashboards that is also embedded with Amazon Bedrock from the back end to give you a great perspective or your leadership report as a final aspect of the stakeholders. And that also narrows down the structured use of it. So this is what I have, and then I do have some examples from the different segments of FSI, like insurance, banking, or cap markets. You decide if you want me to go into the detail. I can talk about some of those in scenarios, and then what was the action and result to how to actually conquer that use case.
Yeah, definitely. Do you have an example you're able to share with us?
Sure, absolutely. If I start with the insurance, let's say, like the best use case scenario these days currently in the market, what we are seeing, John, is insurance adjusters spend hours of reading through long, messy claim notes, and it slows down the payouts for the customers naturally, right? It takes you months for the processes and claims. With a SaaS partner I have been working with on a solution where generative AI summarized these unstructured notes into structured XML fields, let's say, and that field could feed directly into the downstream systems of the partner or the customer. And that cuts the hours of every claim, improved accuracy, freed the adjusters to focus on complex cases rather than repetitive documentation. So I would say, the takeaway on this scenario was AI doesn't replace adjusters. Definitely, that is another common thought out there, but it augments them to work smarter so that they can focus on more creative endeavors.
Exactly. Helping out the adjuster as well as helping out the customer. I mean, that's obviously a very fragile time where time is really of the essence. We talk about needing to get things done quickly. And I think that's really where a lot of generative AI possibilities are kind of open. So I like that. I like that use case example.
Just the heavy lifting of it. Another one I have in mind is regarding banking. Like fraud in banking happens in milliseconds. Absolutely. We all know that. Many systems were reacting minutes or hours later. So we help the partner. Another scenario is that an event-driven fraud detection pipeline. The moment an unusual transaction hits, AI flags it, and serverless automation auto-revokes the credentials or blocks the transaction in real time. So it doesn't, the damage is not done yet. So it's more proactive approach. So instead of a reactive cleanup, the bank could stop the fraud before it hits the customer account and saves millions in losses.
Yeah. And I'm really glad you brought up fraud and kind of the security side of things, because I know that is kind of a double-edged sword when it comes to AI development.
Absolutely.
And since you work a lot with the security considerations, I'm curious what your take is on if AI is kind of the best thing or the worst thing to happen to a DevOps or a security operations team. So, like, do you find that the boom in AI-driven innovation, more buttons being clicked, more applications being out there, more just open routes and actions being taken, has caused for an increase of kind of vulnerabilities? Or do you find that some of the tools that we are now able to create are able to kind of squash those faster than you're saying, kind of in like that banking example? So what's your take on those two worlds?
That's a very interesting question. I have to give you that credit, definitely. And I'm glad you asked that. Very frankly, honestly speaking, AI is both the best and the worst thing happened to DevOps team. It depends on how it is adopted. So without the guardrails, John, it creates new vulnerabilities with the right checks. But with the right checks, it can help the teams fix that problem faster than they appear. So let's say, in other words, on one hand, it has created new risks like prompt injection or AI generated code introducing hidden vulnerabilities. But on the other hand, AI is also giving DevOps their strongest tools yet, summarizing logs, spotting anomalies, or even auto remediating issues in real time, just like the banking example I just gave a couple of minutes ago.
Exactly.
So also the difference comes down to the guardrails team that use AI as an assistant, not a replacement or solving problems.
Yeah, definitely. I like what you say about the guardrails, because I'm really curious about that. And one thing that crosses my mind a lot, especially with these AI tools, is that they are so convenient that I tend to get a little risky sometimes. So how do you weigh risk and convenience? And what are some like tips, or maybe if you could share any guardrails that you think that companies should set up before diving too deep into an AI automated system, or touching production data or something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, about this, the way I look at it, convenience shouldn't outweigh customer trust. right?
Mm-hmm.
Guardrails make both possible. You can't let convenience come at the cost of trust, certainly, because when it comes to the AI and sensitive data, the line is clear. Customer and production data requires the highest level of protection here. The guardrails I recommend are first, strict data classification and access controls. That means knowing
Mm-hmm.
exactly what data AI models can and cannot see. Second priority is applying a privacy preserving techniques like anonymization or synthetic data for training. And then third is always enforce a human in the loop review for any AI outputs tied to production systems. And finally, making that security testing continuous, not one on and done. And that way, I would say you strike the right balance. You unlock AI's value, but you never compromise the trust. So
Mm-hmm.
an example in my head right now popping out is in insurance, generative AI is already reducing claims processing time by automatically extracting and structuring adjusters' notes. So it's all about how you protect the data with the right guardrails.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, data protection is huge, especially in
Mhm.
different verticals. I know as we're both solutions architects, we have to kind of value where it is we're placing these resources because oftentimes security gets kind of tossed to the wayside, in terms of, hey, I want this really cool feature. You will want to get it out before you're really double checking to make sure that everything has kind of been labeled as secure before things are heading out there. And I find that oftentimes, unless it's kind of like a healthcare use case, security is not top of mind. So I like to have some practices of like metadata or variables, especially when setting to the LLMs, because you never know when some data might be kind of leaked out. Do you find that healthcare is typically where you're finding most people who are being secure? I assume banking and healthcare are definitely up there in those types of verticals that are a little bit more conscious.
Yeah, you pointed the exact main ones. Healthcare is another very, very sensitive industry, along with the financials and specifically banking segment. And certainly, I mean that coming from the perspective on data governance, privacy, compliance, the simplest way to track the consent is the metadata. Of course, tag that data
Mm-hmm.
with purpose and then consent ID. So you always know why it exists. And consent tracking means attaching the metadata tags, purpose, consent alongside the data. So that means you have a
Mm-hmm.
certain background. For residency, let's say, I would say route data regionally with data classification policies and enforce those policies at the workload level. So whenever it's gone out, whether your data is in transition or at rest, it is stated with the right tag, with the class.
Mm-hmm.
All the policies are attached to it. And during an incident, the best logs are the ones that auditing keeps, like keep human readable, machine perceivable logs, and then includes why, who, what, not just what. Answer who,
Mm-hmm.
why was done for the raw machine dumps. So one example, I would say that GDPR in Europe, let's say, requires purpose limiting as
Yep.
their policy. So tag consent at ingestion ensures that you don't reuse the customer data improperly. So that prohibits you basically. So that's
Yeah.
a good example of compliance.
I like that a lot. And I assume that tying some of that metadata is kind of keeping the guardrails set, because something that I've noticed is definitely letting the AI off the leash and letting it just run wild has definitely led to some pretty interesting or crazy outcomes. For instance, at Taco Bell, they let someone order 18,000 waters through a drive-through. Not setting proper guardrails or ways in order to keep things centered around the actual business logic and not just letting it be the logic of the LLMs that are kind of sent out. So that leads me to another topic of where are you seeing that businesses are kind of overestimating AI? We are a lot of times wowed and been like, oh my gosh, this program is totally changing the game than how it was a few months ago. But where do you see teams overestimate or kind of like underestimate the capabilities of AI and how it's being used today?
Interesting, very interesting. But yeah, on speaking of that guardrail or the situations, I would like to add one thing. I had to take it out of my mind, but
Uh-huh.
the only good thing you will get out of not setting the right guardrail is a great unforgettable story that everybody will remember.
True.
Yeah.
I
So I
like that. People are talking about it. It's good advertisement.
Yes, just the Taco Bell example or something you gave. So, but yeah, I mean, a great question about overestimating. That is also a very, very common trait I have seen. And both teams overestimating and underestimating. Let me start with the overestimating side. That what they do, many teams assume that AI is a silver bullet that can completely replace human expertise, which is not right. For example, they expect the generative AI to make flawless decisions in regulated industries like finance, healthcare, of course. And that reality is that AI models can produce convincing answers, but without the right guardrails, validation, domain context, which is provided by us humans, those answers may be inaccurate or even risky to be forwarded out. So that is
Yeah.
the overestimation aspect of it. Now, underestimation side, I would say that I often see teams overlook AI's potential in areas that seems less glamorous. Of course, everybody, when the AI was newly coming, the generative AI last year, it was all about bots. Now I think everybody's bored. So, but the potential overlook that seems less glamorous and have a huge impact. For example, things like automating back office workflows, or augmenting fraud detection, or providing real-time insights. That's my most favorite one. Providing the
Oh yeah.
real-time insights in event-driven systems. That is more like it's you stopping and preventing it before it's taking place or happening. So these may sound flashy, but they drive measurable business value, reduce operational risks, free up human talent for higher work and more creative endeavors. So I would say in one line, the winning strategy is to use AI as a force multiplier rather than a replacement.
I like that
That
a lot. When you were talking about the event-driven architecture, we just recently released this really cool Blackjack AI agent, and it kind of crosses that line of event-driven kind of systems where we're not just offloading everything to the LLM and saying, "Hey, make a blackjack game," and then kind of go with it. But being able to handle the times that you calculate the number of what's on your cards, or hey, am I able to bet this amount when I don't have this amount of money? Little simple logic things like that ultimately lead to good trust in the systems, because if it doesn't work, people are going to lose trust. And one thing that you learn is trust is very difficult to get, but very easily lost. And one little kind of hallucination, and your project's out the window. So that's something that I've really been excited about, is just the new capabilities of kind of letting the LLM do what the LLM does best, let code still do what code does best. I'm curious what problem space you're really excited about with AI, or maybe even cloud or security, and how that kind of plays into what future you see AI being.
The most exciting problem space right now is definitely securing AI workloads, because the kind of feedback I get with working with my partners and their customers or enterprise customers, like how is my data secure? And then we have to get into the nitty gritty and explain them that even though if you're sharing on a one single platform like Bedrock, it's not seeable on the API space. So generative AI doesn't live in a model. It touches the prompts and data pipelines, SaaS integrations, definitely, and securing those points are critical. So the intersection of AI and cloud security is where automation meets the governance. You have to set the right guardrails, and that does come under the governance umbrella. And how do you prevent that sensitive data leakage without slowing the innovation? So that means whatever guardrails I'm putting, it should not slow down or the speed of the solution for my partner customer. So for example, a Slack channel accidentally made public, or a Google Drive folder shared with anyone with the link, are far more common than targeted breaches. So that's a very minor and everyday example, more relatable example. So that is what you have to put in the right guardrails and security. And that is, I'm seeing on the workloads, you can even expose accidentally a whole SaaS solution for the partner, which is not favorable. So yeah.
No, yeah, that definitely leads to a bad day for a company. But I'm glad that you're excited about it, because putting guardrails and following the rules are not what a lot of us are doing well. And we see so much overconfidence in terms of AI driven content, LLMs, and kind of the force of information that we are getting makes us think that we are superheroes and that we can do anything that we want. So we appreciate the work that you're doing in order to make sure everything is staying safe and secure, but without slowing down what it is that the application was actually meant to do.
No, absolutely. And then looking forward to work with you. Excited to know
Yeah.
about new endeavors.
No, we're going to be teaming up very well. SignalWire and AWS to the moon. But thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. Take care.